Imagine stepping out of the room for 2 minutes only to come back and find your autistic son visibly upset because your girlfriend allegedly pinched him, and her immediate response is to demand an apology from you. Well, this father found himself in exactly this nightmare scenario, and the internet had some absolute fire to spit about how he handled it. Let us get right into this wild, absolutely fluent, am I the a-hole dilemma. The writer of our story is a dad navigating the tricky waters of blending families. He has an autistic son, and he has been seriously talking about getting engaged to his girlfriend, who brings a son and a daughter of her own into the mix. Things seem to be progressing perfectly. They talk constantly about their future, discussing how they would need to upgrade their living situation since he currently lives in a 3-bedroom house and she lives in a 3-bedroom apartment. They have even spent hours aligning on their parenting styles, always seeming to get on the exact same page. But all of that carefully built trust completely unraveled on a random Sunday night. After dinner, the three of them were settling in to watch a movie. The writer paused the film to run to the bathroom, leaving his girlfriend and his son alone in the living room. When he walked back in, he instantly noticed his son looked upset. Like any good dad, he asked what was wrong, and his son dropped a bomb. He said the girlfriend pinched him. The writer immediately turned to his girlfriend, who flat out denied it. Trying to get to the bottom of it, the dad asked his kid for the exact details. The son explained that he was simply imitating a character from the movie, doing a funny voice, and the girlfriend told him to knock it off. When the kid asked her why she wanted him to stop, she allegedly told him that if he did not stop, she would pinch him. The kid told her not to do that, and according to him, she reached out and pinched him anyway. The girlfriend's version of events is slightly different. She freely admitted that he was doing a funny voice and that she told him to stop, but she swore up and down that she never actually pinched him. Sensing the tension skyrocketing, the writer decided to completely shut down the night, suggesting they all pack it in and head home. This is where the girlfriend's reaction takes a bizarre turn. Instead of being concerned that a child was distressed, she demanded to know if the writer believed her. Trying to keep the peace, he said he believed them both. She snapped back that he cannot possibly believe them both because that does not make any sense, getting incredibly upset before leaving the house. Later that night, the dad asked his son several more times about what happened, and the kid remained absolutely adamant that the pinch occurred. The next day, the writer called his girlfriend to hash things out when she wasn't busy. She firmly maintained her innocence, but once again, she turned it into a bizarre loyalty test, demanding to know if he believed her. The writer gave the only answer a protective parent could give. He told her that as a father, he has to believe his kid first. Her response? She coldly told him not to call her again until he was ready to apologize, and they proceeded to not speak for an entire day. The writer feels completely torn, acknowledging that she is a loving mom to her own kids, but he can also picture a scenario where she got frustrated, gave a playful but inappropriate pinch, and then lied out of pure embarrassment. He is left wondering if he is the villain for prioritizing his son's word over his partner's trust. We really need to put the writer and his son under the microscope for a second. Is there a universe where this kid is completely fabricating this story? Absolutely. Some commenters were quick to point out that kids, even autistic kids, can and do lie. One person mentioned that their autistic boyfriend lies constantly to his parents to keep the peace, noting that a commitment to fairness does not mean an inability to lie. Another commenter shared a story about a kid trying to sabotage a new relationship because they simply do not want to share their dad or move into a new blended family. The writer himself admitted that he checked his son for a mark and found absolutely nothing, that as though he brushed it off because the alleged pinch happened over a sleeve. If you want to play devil's advocate, the kid has a massive motive here. He gets his dad all to himself and establishes that his word is absolute law. But let us analyze the girlfriend's psychological profile here, because her behavior is a glowing neon warning sign. If you are an innocent adult accused of harming your partner's child, your first reaction is going to be sheer panic and concern. You would want to sit down, mediate the conflict, and figure out why this kid is so upset, or why he feels the need to invent such a damaging lie. Instead, she treats this child like a romantic rival. Her immediate instinct was not de escalation, it was manipulation. She threw down an ultimatum, essentially asking, "Who do you love more, me or your son?" That is not the reaction of a mature mother ready to blend a family. That is the reaction of someone trying to establish dominance and secure unquestioning authority over someone else's child. This entire fiasco shines a massive spotlight on the dark reality of blended families and the monster step parent dynamic. It is a universal, highly uncomfortable truth that some people are absolutely spectacular parents to their biological children, but possess zero empathy for anyone else's kids. We expect adults to magically love their partner's children just because they love the partner, but it rarely works that way. It requires an immense amount of patience, especially when neurodivergence is involved. For an autistic child, imitating movie characters or using echolalia is a core way they process the world and regulate their emotions. For an adult to walk into that child's safe space, their own home, and shut down their self expression because it is slightly annoying shows a profound lack of emotional intelligence. This isn't just about a pinch, it is about an adult demanding a child mask their neurodivergence for her convenience. The Reddit courtroom absolutely erupted over this, turning into a massive debate about whether autistic kids are capable of lying. A highly controversial take surfaced from a user who argued that the dad was blowing things out of proportion and reinforcing harmful behavior by blindly believing a lie. This commenter suggested that maybe the kid was just exaggerating because he was annoyed that the girlfriend told him to stop being loud, and the dad's blind loyalty was going to ruin a perfectly good relationship. But the internet was not having any of that, and the rebuttal was absolutely savage. A commenter named TGAH delivered a knockout punch, pointing out a massive detail everyone was glossing over. They wrote, "Let us not blow past the fact that she is not denying that she threatened to pinch him. The kid told his dad she threatened him, and the girlfriend never once disputed that part of the story. Think about how unhinged that is. You are left alone with your partner's disabled child for 2 minutes. He makes a silly voice, and your go to parenting strategy is the threat of physical pain." Another user named Catch Your Wave, a parent of autistic children, completely destroyed the girlfriend's reaction. They pointed out that if a child accused them of assault, they would be devastated and spiraling out of fear. The fact that this girlfriend showed absolutely zero concern about why the kid would lie tells you everything you need to know. She was not worried about the child's mental state. She was entirely focused on her own ego and demanding the dad pick a side. As one user brilliantly phrased it, the girlfriend set up a Kobayashi Maru scenario, a no-win test designed purely to force the dad into submission. The final verdict here is crystal clear. The writer is absolutely not the a-hole for protecting his son. Whether the pinch actually happened or not is almost irrelevant at this point, because the girlfriend's reaction exposed exactly who she is. She showed that she lacks the patience to handle his son's neurodivergence. She thinks it is acceptable to use physical threats to control a child's behavior, and she will weaponize the silent treatment to force her partner to abandon his protective instincts. You cannot build a blended family with someone who sees your child as competition. If this dad wants to handle this the right way, he needs to send her this exact scorched earth text message right now. "I will never apologize for making my son my first priority." The fact that you threatened to hurt him for playing in his own home and then demanded I take your side over his safety tells me everything I need to know about how you would treat him behind my back. Do not contact me again. What would you do in this situation? If your partner and your kid had completely conflicting stories about physical discipline, whose side are you taking? Let me know down in the comments. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for more crazy Reddit drama, and I will see you in the next one. Imagine telling your girlfriend that a marriage proposal is right around the corner, leaving her hanging in agonizing suspense for 6 full months, and then canceling the entire relationship because you snooped through her iPad and saw her complaining about you to her friends. Well, this guy just did exactly that, and the internet completely vaporized him for it. Let's get right into this absolute train wreck of an Am I the a-hole post. The setup here starts out sounding like a total dream scenario, but it spirals into a psychological nightmare real fast. The writer is 28 years old, his girlfriend is 27, and they have been together for almost 3 years. They live together, they have good jobs, there is zero drama or cheating, and their families get along great. By all accounts, they are doing incredibly well, and they regularly talk about their future together. The writer claims he has been looking forward to marriage and even had a ring picked out. Notice how he says picked out, not purchased. He told his girlfriend that the proposal was coming soon, but he wanted the actual date to be a surprise, so he kept the details to himself. But then, absolute silence for 6 entire months. Unsurprisingly, the girlfriend starts losing her mind. Over the last half year, she has become completely fixated on the impending engagement. What started as normal conversations slowly morphed into passive aggressive jokes and constant comments about when he was finally going to put a ring on her finger. It reached a boiling point recently where literally any disagreement they had would end with her throwing it in his face, saying things like, "This is exactly why you haven't proposed yet." This is where things take a massive left turn into toxic territory. Last week, the writer was looking at her iPad and saw a message preview pop up. He admits he shouldn't have done it, but he clicked on it and uncovered a private group chat between his girlfriend and her best friends. What he found inside was basically a war room strategy session on how to psychologically manipulate him into popping the question. Her friends were giving her all sorts of unhinged advice, giving him the cold shoulder, completely dropping her effort as a partner, this making him feel guilty and withholding all physical intimacy. They even suggested using her upcoming birthday as a hard deadline and dropping hints that she had other options if he did not step up. The writer absolutely lost his mind over this. He claims that before he saw those messages, he genuinely wanted to marry her, but seeing her scheme behind his back made him question if he really wanted to spend the rest of his life with someone capable of manipulation. So, he confronted her directly and asked if she was using these weird tricks to force an engagement. She did not even deny it. She admitted she was just trying to get some clarity so she would not waste any more of her life, flat out telling him that if he was actually serious, he would have done it by now. The writer's response was ice cold. He looked her in the eyes and told her that he is no longer proposing, especially not if he is being coerced. He told her that if she keeps trying to manipulate him, he is officially off the proposal train. Now, the house is a war zone. The girlfriend is telling everyone that he is punishing her for having standard relationship needs and accusing him of dangling marriage as a tool to control her. Her friends are treating him like the ultimate villain because he invaded her privacy to read the messages in the first place. The writer tries to play the rational victim, saying he understands that 3 years is enough time to feel anxiety about commitment, but you cannot force someone to marry you. He feels like she treated their relationship like a game. Hold on, we need to completely rip this narrative apart because this guy is playing massive games of his own. He is trying to paint himself as the noble, betrayed partner who just wanted to plan a romantic surprise, but let's look at his actual behavior. He explicitly promised this woman a ring. He set an expectation, told her to be ready, and then he just s- sat on his hands for half a year. If you truly love someone and you know they are anxiously waiting for the most important question of their life, why would you torture them for 6 months? The truth is hiding in plain sight. He says he picked out a ring, which is a very careful way of saying he never actually spent a single dollar to buy one. He wasn't planning a surprise, he was buying time. When you promise someone the world and then completely withdraw, you create a vacuum of anxiety. Her looking to her friends for terrible advice was not a master manipulation plot. It was an act of total desperation from a woman who felt her window closing. And the absolute cherry on top, he snooped through her private electronics to find the exact excuse he needed to back out of a promise he never intended to keep. What we are looking at here is a textbook, highly toxic phenomenon that the internet refers to as future faking. This is an incredibly cruel tactic where a partner talks constantly about a shared future, marriage, buying a house, having children, solely to keep you invested in the relationship right now. They sell you a dream so that you stick around, do their laundry, split the rent, and provide emotional support. But the second it comes time to actually sign the papers or buy the ring, they suddenly have a million excuses. It is the ultimate form of weaponized procrastination. Women in these situations end up becoming what one commenter brilliantly called the foster girlfriend. You put in all the work, you build the man up, you teach him how to be a good partner, and then he strings you along until he gets bored. Then he dumps you, meets someone new, and marries that new girl in 6 months. It happens every single day, and it is devastating because it robs people of their time, the one resource you can never get back. The comment section on this post is an absolute bloodbath, and it might be one of the most unified takedowns in Reddit history. A few people tried to defend the guy, suggesting that the girlfriend's friends were toxic for telling her to withhold intimacy and give him the cold shoulder. And sure, that advice is terrible, but the rebuttal to that argument completely obliterated the writer. One user, going by the name ShdDeckFMLXKF, hit the nail on the head, telling the writer, "I believe this is called future faking," and you kind of just got called out for it. Another commenter, Dynamic Cushion 65, completely dismantled his timeline, saying, "Having a ring picked out is not the same as purchasing it. And if he really wanted this, within 2 months, he would have put that ring on her finger." The stories that started pouring into the comments were genuinely heartbreaking and proved exactly why the girlfriend was panicking. A user named Substantial Station 8 shared a story that stopped everyone in their tracks. She spent 8 years waiting for a man who kept telling her a proposal was coming. 8 years. By the time the relationship ended, she had to have a full hysterectomy because her medical issues had gotten so severe, meaning her window to start a biological family completely closed at 31. Now she is 35, alone, carrying massive trauma, while that same ex-boyfriend is off planning a wedding and a family with his brand new girlfriend. That is exactly why women cannot just sit around forever, waiting for a man to decide their worth. A commenter named Comfortable Madness pointed out the brutal biological reality, stating that men can father children on their deathbeds, but women only have so long. Dragging your feet for 6 months when you know your partner wants a family is not just annoying, it is actively dangerous to her future. The comments absolutely refuse to let the writer play the victim. A user named WindyLink jumped in to show what a real man does when he is ready to commit. He wrote that when he decided to pop the question, the planning took a month at most. He got an aquamarine ring, booked a riverboat cruise at dusk, and proposed with a handwritten letter under a gazebo. He told the writer flat out, "You are stalling because you do not want to commit." Another user, Tinkerbell Rock and Rolls, an older married woman, completely verbally eviscerated him. She told him he was gloating in the power he had over his girlfriend, dangling a carrot just out of reach and moving the goalposts whenever she got too close. She ended her absolutely savage takedown with a simple piece of advice: shit or get off the pot. The consensus is undeniable. The writer is completely the a-hole. He did not cancel the proposal because he felt manipulated. He canceled it because he never wanted to do it in the first place, and his snooping gave him the perfect scapegoat to shift the blame onto her. He wants the benefits of a live-in girlfriend who splits the bills and provides comfort without ever having to step up and be a husband. If you are the girlfriend in this situation and you somehow find this video, here is the exact text message you need to send to him right now while you're packing your bags. You did not cancel the proposal because there was never going to be one. You used a ring to keep me trapped, and you invaded my privacy to find an excuse to back out. I am done playing the foster girlfriend. Enjoy your empty promises. Do not ever contact me again. What would you do if your partner promised you a ring and then left you hanging for half a year? Would you wait it out, or would you pack up and leave? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more crazy Reddit drama, and I will catch you in the next one. Imagine being pressured to hand over $50 to buy a luxury watch for a coworker who spent the last 3 years making your life an absolute living hell. Well, one employee decided to stand her ground and keep her wallet shut and the entire office completely turned against her. Let us get right into this wildish Beshre. Am I the a-hole corporate drama? The writer of our story is 28 years old, and she has had the profound misfortune of working alongside a 63-year-old woman named Linda. Linda is finally retiring after 40 long years at the company. But instead of a peaceful, quiet exit, Human Resources is going around the office with a collection envelope, demanding $50 per person to buy Linda a fancy retirement watch. The massive problem here is that Linda has been absolutely terrible to the writer since she started 3 years ago. We are talking about constant, targeted hostility. Linda has repeatedly made snide comments about her age, questioned her professional qualifications, undermined her in important meetings, and generally treated her like she is completely incompetent. So, when that collection envelope finally made its way to the writer's desk, she simply passed it along without contributing a single dime. Her manager immediately pulled her aside, looking shocked, and asked if she had just forgotten to put money in. The writer looked her manager dead in the eye and said no. She was actively choosing not to contribute. The manager gasped and claimed that literally everyone contributes to retirement gifts. The writer held her ground, stating she did not feel comfortable handing over $50 to someone who had been openly hostile to her for years. Instead of supporting her, the manager accused her of being petty and holding grudges. The writer fired back, clarifying that it was not a grudge, but a simple choice not to financially celebrate a person who made her work life completely miserable. Now, the office environment has turned incredibly toxic. Several coworkers are shooting her dirty looks from across the room, and someone even left a highly passive-aggressive sticky note on her desk that just said, "Be the bigger person." To make matters worse, the collection organizer circled back around, asking if she had reconsidered. When the writer stated her decision was final, the organizer resorted to a threat, saying it will be extremely obvious that she did not contribute when they publicly announce the total gift amount. The writer simply shrugged and said that is perfectly fine. Even her own boyfriend is telling her to just pay the $50 to avoid the office drama, but she genuinely cannot stomach the idea of rewarding her bully. Let us put the writer under the microscope for a minute. Is there a chance she is leaning a little too heavily into the victim role? When you have a 28-year-old working next to a 63-year-old who has literally been at the exact same company for 4 decades, a generational clash is practically guaranteed. Maybe Linda's so-called undermining was actually just blunt, old-school feedback that the younger employee took too personally. If Linda was truly creating a hostile work environment for 3 solid years, why did the writer never take this up the chain of command? She apparently sat quietly, letting the resentment boil over, only to finally make her grand, dramatic stand over a $50 collection envelope right as the woman is walking out the door. But we need to analyze the real villains of this story, because it is not just Linda. Linda is a textbook corporate territorialist. She built her entire identity around this company for 40 years. And whenever fresh, young talent walked through the doors, she felt her legacy was threatened. She bullied the writer to maintain a fragile sense of superiority. However, the true antagonists here are the manager and the human resources department. They sat back and watched Linda terrorize a junior employee for 3 years without lifting a finger to stop it. Now they are running a corporate shakedown, strong-arming the staff into subsidizing the company's gratitude. This situation highlights a universally infuriating experience, the absolute weaponization of office culture. We have all heard that miserable phrase, "be the bigger person." As one brilliant commenter pointed out, being the bigger person is just the first instruction on a list of how to be a doormat. Society constantly pressures the victims of bullying into keeping the peace, simply because holding toxic people accountable makes the bystanders uncomfortable. When a miserable employee is finally leaving, the enablers always want to sweep the years of abuse under the rug with cake and a forced donation. They demand toxic positivity. And let us talk about the absolute audacity of a company demanding that employees, many of whom are likely living paycheck to paycheck, fund a corporate retirement gift. A luxury watch is a traditional corporate gift. It historically represented the company giving time back to the employee for their decades of devoted service. Passing a hat around so the executives do not have to dip into the company budget is nothing short of indoor panhandling. If a multi-million dollar company wants to honor a 40-year veteran, they need to cut the check themselves. The Reddit comments section turned into a massive therapy session, people sharing their own insane stories of corporate extortion. One user shared a jaw-dropping story from their time working as a real estate agent. There was a deeply creepy guy in their office named Dave who would literally come up behind women, sniff their hair, and tell them he loved how they smelled. When Dave eventually got married, the office owner, who never did anything about his creepy behavior, announced a mandatory $25 charge against everyone's commission to buy Dave a $300 wedding gift card. The commenter actually stood up in a meeting and told the owner that if she wanted the office creep to have a gift, she could pay for it out of her own profits. Another user shared how their former employer tried to force everyone to sign up for an automatic paycheck deduction for a charity. When the employee refused, management treated them like the ultimate villain because it ruined their perfect compliance score for a pizza party. There was a very vocal minority in the comments claiming this entire story had to be a complete fabrication. Several people accused the writer of karma farming, stating that no actual human resources department operates this blatantly unprofessionally. One user pointed out a major logical flaw. Nice watches do not come in $50 increments, and nobody in the corporate world announces the exact dollar value of a retirement gift to a crowd. They argued that the idea of a manager hounding an employee over a collection, combined with coworkers leaving passive-aggressive sticky notes, sounded like an AI-generated script for a bad soap opera. But the internet vehemently pushed back against that hot take. A former human resources employee stepped in and completely shattered the illusion of corporate competence, revealing that during their time at a major insurance company, the vast majority of policy violations were actually committed by the human resources staff themselves. They pointed out that many reps have absolutely no clue about actual employment law. Another username grew for him hit the absolute core of the issue, stating that providing a retirement gift is something an employer should be doing, not the employees. The absolute most savage takedown came from a user who gave the writer the perfect comeback for that ridiculous sticky note. They said, "I am not the bigger person. I match the energy given to me. You can be the bigger person by not bullying me." Another commenter suggested a brilliant, petty response to the coworkers giving her dirty looks. Tell them to be the bigger person and contribute as much money on her behalf as they contributed to shutting down Linda's bullying for the past 3 years. The final verdict here is undeniable. The writer is absolutely not the a-hole. Nobody should ever be forced or manipulated into paying their bully. If the company wants to throw a parade for a 40-year veteran, they need to open their own checkbook instead of shaking down the junior staff. Here is the exact path forward. The writer needs to document every single time she's approached about this money, including that sticky note, because this is rapidly crossing the line into workplace harassment and creating a hostile environment. If that collection organizer or the manager comes back to threaten her one more time, here is the exact word-for-word message she needs to deliver. My financial decisions are completely private. If the company cannot afford to buy Linda a watch after 40 years of service, that is a management issue. Do not approach me about my personal finances ever again. What would you do in this situation? Would you bite your tongue and hand over $50 just to keep the peace in the office? Or would you look your manager in the eye and tell them to kick rocks? Let me know your exact move down in the comments below. And if you absolutely love unhinged workplace drama, smash that subscribe button, and I will catch you in the next one.